So, just more evidence of the brutality of the U.S. government towards Syria and its people. This was from back in May, and now we have these recent, the Caesar Act, further sanctions on Syria. Hugely troubling and disgusting on every level. Trump has ordered U.S. forces to burn wheat fields in Syria, according to a report. Oh my God. I mean, again, it's designed to make conditions so bad, I should say, in Syria that it forces, Syrians. Obviously, the rationale is that the U.S. government wants, regime change there. They want the Assad regime gone, and they think that by making conditions so worse, dropping all these bombs, supporting ISIS in the region, burning wheat fields, that will have the desired effect. Hasn't happened yet. And, also needs to be pointed out from everything that I know about Syria, they are actually a secular state. You can practice any religion that you want there. The U.S. is on the side of ISIS, the jihadist, basically, and that should be troubling to everybody. And again, there's no reason for the U.S. to be there in the first place. If you consider yourself on the left, you need to also be anti-imperialist, and that includes Syria as well. So disgusting. I mean, literally targeting the country's freaking food supply. I mean, it's a crime against humanity, for God's sakes. A plane of the American occupation forces has dropped several heat balloons on the agricultural lands of Shadadi Field south of Al-Hasaka, setting fire to the wheat crops in this province, warned the Syrian news agency SANA on May 17th. Just 1 week later, the same agency has published a report indicating that Trump ordered U.S. forces to burn hectares and hectares of these harvests. So big fucking amounts. That's a lot of fucking food being wasted. War criminal. Just like, Obama and Bush were too, frankly. Let's keep it real. The U.S. forces used Apache helicopters to allegedly launch heat balloons, causing several fires and burning more than 200 dunams, surface unit of wheat fields in the village of Adla in the Shadadi field south of El Haska, according to the information published in this agency, which has also pointed out that these helicopters made provocative flights as they got too close to people's homes and agricultural fields. More terror, more causing panic and fear in the population, especially among children. Need to drastically reduce the military budget of the United States. We spend more than the next 10 countries combined, and this is the kind of shit we get as a result. It's not making anybody safer. It's harming civilians, the most marginalized and vulnerable, all across the world. Only thing it's doing is propping up the military-industrial complex, the Lockheed Martins, the Boeings, the GEs of the world, and just wreaking havoc on civilian populations all over the world. And again, we need to stand against imperialism no matter where it's happening. During their illegal presence, causing panic and fear in the population, especially among children. I mean, how would kids are going to have PTSD in addition to not having access to this food? During their illegal presence, the U.S. occupation forces established bases in several areas of Jazria, supplying them with weapons and logistical equipment through illegal crossings with Iraq to reinforce their presence and steal Syria's oil resources and main crops, the Sana news agency reported last week. However, the new report by the Sana International Business Times website blames the U.S. for being behind the fires that broke out in this region. The report states that the U.S. has not only tightened its enforcement measures, but has also deliberately set fire to farmers' land to prevent them from selling their crops to the Syrian state. Sad and disgusting, but not surprising from this regime. Or it wouldn't have been surprising from Obama's either, or Bush's, frankly. The report title confirmed. Trump ordered Syria's wheat crop to burn during the pandemic. Claims that the U.S. forces were carrying out the orders of the U.S. president. U.S. forces, in addition to illegally occupying Syria, have used weapons to burn 200 acres of wheat fields. 200 acres of wheat. That could have fed so many freaking people in Syria. In Adla, south of al-Hasaka, this is their freedom. These are their beloved troops. This is a war crime, yeah, indeed. Where is the condemnation? Where's the UN activist Richard Medhurst has asked himself on social media network Twitter. He's also a great follow on Twitter and makes some really good YouTube videos as well. All this destruction and misery makes no sense. It deliberately stars dozens of people ruining their homes and livelihoods. Only monsters behave like this, he added. As this report is being published, millions of people in northeast Syria continue to be victims of destruction of infrastructure and the lack of fundamental basic services, in addition to the health crisis caused by the coronavirus that has also affected one of the cruelest conflicts of the century. The International Committee of the Red Cross has reported only one of the 16 hospitals in the Northeast is fully operational, and more than half of the public health centers are out of service. Sporadic water shortages disrupt daily life and undermine people's ability to take basic hygiene precautions to cope with COVID-19. In some places, generators have become the only source of power, they said. For millions of people in northeastern Syria, the consequences of the fighting, shortages of water, food and medicine, lack of electricity, economic recession with job losses and rising prices are as worrying as the coronavirus, and possibly even more so at the moment, warned Karim Mahmoud, head of the ICRC office in Al-Hasaka. The fires in the wheat fields of the Al Jazeera region have occurred at the same time as Mark Lowcock, UN Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator, said that the current global pandemic has led to an alarming increase in food security that was further worsened by these wheat fields being burned. I mean, so messed up. An estimated 9.3 million people across Syria are now food insecure, compared to 7.9 million 6 months ago. Meanwhile, the number of civilian killings in the country is increasing, and there are indications that terrorist groups such as Daesh see the pandemic as an opportunity to regroup, perpetrate violence, according to a statement issued by the UN. Damn. There's some of the wheat fields burned by the US. Syrian delegate to the UN also reminded council members that Damascus has repeatedly called the United Nations to end economic, commercial, financial, and health terrorism that the country is suffering from through unilateral coercive sanctions. In this conflict, Russia supports the regime of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, while Turkey and the United States support the rebels, the jihadists, Al-Qaeda, Daesh. Since the beginning of the conflict, the country's government and the Syrian citizens themselves had expressed their rejection of the U.S.'s presence in the country. In this context, the American Army has set up a new base in May in the enclave Deir ez-Zor. Again, so messed up, so disgusting. The U.S. should have never got involved in Syria in the first place. You want to get involved there? Okay. Figure out what type of humanitarian aid the people need and coordinate giving that to the government to help them out. Or other forms of diplomacy. There's no fucking reason we need to be sanctioning Syria. There's no reason that we need to support these rebels in their fight against the Syrian government, who's trying to, overthrow the Syrian government and install a theocracy that would be, amendable to the U.S. And it's just disgusting on every level. And if you're a leftist, you also need to be an anti-imperialist wherever the U.S. is trying to meddle. That includes Syria, Venezuela, Iran, North Korea, Cuba, Nicaragua, Mexico, wherever it needs to be called out and condemned swiftly.